Leading medical groups have declared a national emergency in child and adolescent mental health. Yes, this is an outcome of what went on during the pandemic. And I'd like to talk this over with my friend who is a licensed professional counselor and a founder of the Brain Performance Center. Leigh Richardson is back on Iowa Radio. Leigh, welcome back and good morning.
Good morning to you.
So, Leigh, what do you see as the elements that are leading to what basically is a crisis in mental health among our kids?
Well, and it's not just our kids. Mental health is a global crisis. There was a study that showed that suicide rates have gone way up. Well, suicide is the fourth leading cause of death globally for kids between the ages 15 and 19. And certainly the last 18 months have changed things, but, we're so disconnected. When you're an adolescent, your connection comes through your school or the band or the football team. So you've lost that connective that you had with the school. And then let's say within your family, one of your parents has been laid off. So that creates an element of risk. And certainly there's, the whole mental health aspect. Depression is the most commonly linked to suicide. So there's different pieces of it, but I think that our kids they're hit the hardest because mental health at its best is an afterthought.
You're getting right into what I was going to ask you about, Leigh. Mental health as an afterthought. I think it would be easy with kids. And look, I've raised moody adolescents, and then you can just say, oh, well, they're just teenagers. But is that a problem? When do we as parents really need to become concerned about our kids that this really is a mental health issue? It's not just kids being kids.
I think as parents, we need to be concerned when we see a change in behavior or when we see them doing a new behavior that we haven't seen before. If we see a change in their sleep cycle, if we see a change in their eating, if we see more isolation, if we see them withdrawing, the things that they used to love to do, they don't want to do anymore. Those are all red flags. And when we see those, instead of saying, oh, well, that's just a teenager, we need to stop. And the most important thing that we can do is talk to them and talk about it and ask questions and encourage them. Anytime you feel that you're down or you're just confused about something, come talk to me.
Leigh, this conversation just reminds me of last year when I was taking calls from parents and they started talking about how worried they were for their kids. They were not going to have a graduation ceremony. They were not going to have a prom. Callers started to beg me to urge officials around Iowa to have a baseball and softball season just so the kids could have something normal to go to. What do you think was the most damaging part of how we approached this pandemic for our kids? Was it the isolation? Was it the ending of events that, were one-time events and they couldn't go back to? As you're treating kids, what are you seeing that really impacted these kids?
Well, I think it's one thing. It's fear. There was so much uncertainty about what was going to be going on. Even the next day, churches shut down, gyms shut down, schools shut down. That created so much uncertainty that it put us all into that fear state. And for a kid, and when you look up to your parents and you see your parents are freaking out, of course, what does that do to you? It puts you more into that vulnerable state.
So now that we have people really raising the alarm bells here, Leigh, about the mental health of our kids, what do we need to do? Of course, one of the things I'm always saying that we need to do is to make sure it's easy for parents to be able, if they think their kid needs professional help, that they find an easy way to be able to access that system. What do you think as a professional that's actually in the field?
Well, I do think professional help is always an option. And I always, when I work with families, I tell them, Mom, don't try to be their counselor. Don't try to be their therapist. But you have, as a parent, I think that you have to soften that transition into a therapeutic relationship. And of course, depending on the age of the child and how ready they are for it. But you can tell. And just ask your child, would you like to talk to somebody else besides me? And if you get a definitely, then you know your answer.
That is great practical advice. She is a licensed professional counselor and the founder of the Brain Performance Center. That is Leigh Richardson. I always enjoy talking these topics over with her. Leigh, thanks very much for talking with me today.